What's the best $10 you've ever spent, and what did it get you? Story 1. I bought a window seat on my way to Hawaii for $10. At the time, there were 2 active volcanoes erupting, and my flight was during the middle of the night. I got to see both from the sky with an awesome view for about 15 minutes. Story 2. I always want to click on these questions and find great deals and hidden gems that are $10 and end up getting these stories about spending $10 on a bucket of popcorn, which happened to spill on a woman in the theater who ended up becoming that guy's wife. Story 3. I have an answer from a week ago. A smaller chain of dollar stores is going out of business near me, and on this location's last day, everything you could fit in a cart was $10, the whole cart. I was nice to employees as they closed down, so they let me in early on their final day to fill up my carts with them prior to the regular public. I lived out my supermarket sweep dreams and went hog wild, just dumping and filling carts. 1. I grabbed all pet supplies to donate to my rescue, and I mean all hundreds of collars and leashes, food bowls, and toys. 2. A bunch of socks and slip-on shoe sandals. Donated those to our local shelter. 3. I grabbed all makeup products. 4. And party-type supplies and piñatas for VBS this summer. It was so much fun, and the full retail value of my cart was in the thousands for $10 and went to support causes. On my way to donating the supplies to the rescue, I saw a homeless guy with 2 dogs and a sign reading, "Need food for my dog." And I was like, well, the Lord put me in the right place because I just happened to have stuff for dogs in my car. So I put together a bag of goodies for his dogs. The other location near me closes down next weekend, and they are doing the cart thing too, so I'll be there to get in on that deal. It's just fun to grab and toss in a cart and not care about the price. Story 4. I went to Portugal and bought pastéis de nata. They're a traditional Portuguese tart. They're hard to make. They were the most magical thing my palate has ever eaten. Before, I was a passive baker. The experience made me deeply passionate about baking, and the hobby and passion for sharing food completely turned my life around. I am no longer suicidal. I ended a decade-long run of bad relationships, sought therapy, met the love of my life, and I bake those tarts once a month still, and they still bring me the same level of joy. It's a little abstract, but I consider it the best investment I've ever made. Story 5. Gerber Shard. It's a keychain tool with a pry bar, bottle opener, flat and Phillips screwdriver. Cuts tape on boxes. It scrapes stuff off surfaces. Just a beautifully designed, TSA-compliant tool that has got me out of a jam or helped fix a problem quickly. Story 6. I found a small television with a built-in video cassette recorder at a garage sale for $10. Yes, a video cassette recorder. I still have all of my VHS tapes, a little over 100. I got that television in 2010 and it still works. As silly as it may sound, it was a lifesaver for me in high school. Things got bad at home quite often, so I would put in a nostalgic Disney movie, play The Sims 2, and it was like I created a sanctuary for myself. As an adult, I still use it to calm my nerves while I play The Sims 4. Story 7. 2 cups of tea for myself and a friend who was going through some tough times. She shared some troubling thoughts about something she had experienced the night before, and I reassured her that none of it was a reflection on her character. I felt she would have said the same to me, encouraging me to move past my doubts by reminding me of my worth. She smiled and seemed to agree after that. Following our conversation, we spent most of the time in silence, simply enjoying our tea together. We watched koi carp swimming in a nearby pool. She appeared transformed after finishing her tea, as if the storm clouds around her had dissipated, hinting at the possibility of clearer skies ahead. It's possible the gesture held no significant impact, and she might have overcome her troubles on her own. However, I suspect the issues were serious. I was incredibly worried when she began to open up. We lost contact a few months later, as we were both studying abroad in a foreign country. Yet, I still believe that was one of the most meaningful gestures I could have offered. A cup of tea and a kind word. It's remarkable how such simple things can be pivotal. Sad but true. Story 8. I bought a small piece of luggage at the Goodwill for $9.99 the week before my daughter was born to use as my hospital bag. She just used it for a weekend trip to visit her cousins. She's 20. Story 9. I was talking to a girl on Tinder whom I had not met in person yet. She was going out with some friends for drinks one Friday night, and I wasn't able to join. I asked if she had Venmo and sent her money for her drinks. My thought process was that if I'm the one buying her drinks, then she wouldn't accept a drink from someone else and I wouldn't lose her. That was 5 years ago and we have a daughter now. Story 10. I bought counterfeit Oakley sunglasses in Battery Park, New York City when I was in high school. I knew they were counterfeit when I bought them, but I needed a pair of sunglasses and they were surprisingly well made. They lasted 10 years until I accidentally ran them over with my car. Story 11. The Wassa Wassa high-pressure shower head on Amazon. It's the best shower head I've ever had, and it's a basic yet simple stationary head. It doesn't detach or oscillate or anything like that. Just one setting, extremely powerful. The whole shower experience has a slight sting to it. I will freely endorse this without any shame. Story 12. Bunny Ears TV Antennas. Big Lots, 2022. They will last for years and let me host people for live TV events like the Super Bowl without having to pay or upgrade streaming services. Bonus feature, you get to see local TV advertisements, many of which are priceless in their own way. Highly recommended. Story 13, we did this sort of festival event in a park. It was a lot of physical work late into the night. In the morning, we went to Denny's and I got a meat lover's omelet. It was like the perfect pile of carbs and protein for all the nutrients I burned. I think it was about $10 then. Story 14. I was in 8th grade in 2014, and a schoolmate's house was burned down. There was a donation drive that went around each classroom, and I donated an amount equivalent to $10 in our currency in secret. Back from where I was, it was considered a big deal since $10 was huge, especially for an 8th grader. Story 15. My dog went to meet a farmer who had puppies for sale. He had a bunch running around for people to play with and pick from, but he had one alone in a pen. When I noticed one by itself, I asked about it. He told me it had some kind of infection and he was going to put it down later that day. I went over and picked her up, checked her out, and the sore he mentioned was a mildly red bald spot from sleeping at the bottom of the puppy pile. I let him know she would be fine and shouldn't be put down. He didn't want to hear it, so I asked how much he wanted for her since the rest were $100 each. He said to give him $10 since that's what he had into the shots. Best dog I have ever had by far, and to think she wouldn't have made it another day if I hadn't stopped. Story 16. I spent even less. Michael Jackson gave this press conference at the Olympic Stadium in Munich in 1999. You could watch it, provided you paid your entrance fee to visit the stadium. I believe that was 2 Deutsche Mark, so approximately $1. And definitely worth it. Story 17. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I finally get the chance to tell this story. This was about 15 years ago. I had a 10 in my pocket, was running errands, and had time to kill. So, I go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and get a meal which came to exactly $9. I give the cashier a 10, and she hands me back 2 5s. I look at her confused and tell her, "Hey, I gave you a 10, and you gave me 2 5s. She goes, "Yeah, I know." I tell her, that doesn't add up. She goes, "No, it does." I'm like, "Forget it, I was honest, free meal." So, I still got $10 with me, and I'm like, well, might as well put some gas in my car. Go put exactly $10 of gas in the car and give the cashier the 2 5s. Cashier hands me back a 10. I'm like, what the heck? Okay, let's try this again. Excuse me, I gave you 2 5s, and you gave me back a 10 for $10 of gas. Cashier goes, no sir, the amount is correct. Forget it, cool, free food and gas. At this point, the only logical thing to do is go buy a scratch and win ticket, so I go to another convenience store and buy a scratch ticket. I buy one, get the correct change back, and I win $10. I'm like, this luck won't quit, so forget it. At this point, I'm going to the casino, go play me some blackjack. I win $10. This story doesn't feel real anymore, but it was the tenor that refused to quit. A good day. Story 18. I was visiting a friend in America. On my last day, we were walking through the mall. There was a raffle for a Harley Davidson. Each ticket was $10, so I bought one. I gave her the ticket as I was leaving the following day. A few months later, she sent me a photograph of a new car she bought. Turns out she won the Harley, sold it, and bought herself a new car. I got a thank you message with an X at the end. Story 19. I spent $10 a few years back buying candy from some kids trying to get to a summer basketball camp. I asked them how long they'd been out there, and they said 4 or 5 hours. It was 95 degrees outside, full Florida sun, and they had maybe 20 very melted candy bars left. So, I pulled out another $40 from the ATM, bought all their remaining candy, and then got them some chips and Gatorades. It was nice to see them so happy and to know they could get out of the sun and relax. But the best part was this maybe 14 or 15-year-old kid who was absolutely at least 6 feet 5 inches picking me up in a bear hug like I was nothing. I didn't expect it, and at 6 feet 2 inches and 170 pounds myself, I'm not used to being manhandled that easily. So, it was just absolutely hilarious the ease with which he picked me up. They were super sweet kids, and I ended up seeing them at the grocery store a few weeks later. They were so kind and excited to show me pictures of their uniforms. One of the kids even told me that since I helped them, he used some of his extra money to help another kid attend the camp, which made me incredibly happy and so proud. It also reaffirms my belief that nothing is ever lost when you put good out into the world. Maybe things don't always work out, but putting kindness into the world always pays dividends. Karma comes back one way or another, and I'm determined only to get the good results. Edit. I didn't even notice you have crypto in your username. I think I'm going to take my advice on avoiding being scammed from someone who maybe isn't as susceptible to the most obvious con in history. Story 20. It was $11, but the happy hoodie helped my dog's fireworks anxiety better than anything else we have ever tried. Those with anxious dogs know how awful it can be. This thing changed our lives. I no longer dread firework holidays. Story 21. I had an annoying neighbor. He asked me for $10. I knew he wouldn't pay me back, but I also knew he would avoid me to not have to pay me back. Actually, I never saw him again. Worth every penny. Story 22. When I was a sophomore in high school in the late 1980s, I was walking down the hall when my math teacher asked me why I wasn't heading over to take the SAT. I had no idea what the preliminary SAT was or why I would want to take it. But he told me it was important and loaned me $10, which was the fee to take the test. I ended up becoming a National Merit Scholar, something I would not have qualified for if I hadn't taken the preliminary SAT that day. I received $22,000 in scholarships directly related to being a National Merit Scholar. And that certainly didn't hurt me with some of the other scholarships I received. That was more than 35 years ago. That amount of scholarships represented about half the cost of attending the small private college I ended up going to. My family absolutely could not have afforded to send me there without that money available. I did pay my math teacher back for the $10 he loaned me. It was definitely the best $10 I ever spent. Story 23. I spent $10 on one of those cheap little foam swords that knick-knack stores all over the place sell. My wife and I were barely scraping by, paycheck to paycheck at the time, and we used what little money we had to fund a 2-day camping trip with our then 4-year-old. All of our camping provisions came from the dollar store, but we needed to buy camp wood from the general store outside the campground, and while there, my son really wanted a foam sword. I initially said no because between my wife and I, we had about $20 until our next pay cycle a few days later, but I couldn't stand the hurt in his eyes. So I went back in to pee while my wife got him in the car, bought the sword, and almost broke down at the sheer joy on his face when I opened the back door and handed it to him. I don't care if it only lasted for a week after we got home, and I don't care that it almost put us in financial jeopardy. The joy on his face and the giggles as he chased me through the woods pretending to be a knight are things I'll cherish for the remainder of my days. Story 24. I am an idiot. I was traveling to Cambodia to visit Angkor Wat but flew into the wrong city. I found out that I was across the country from where I was supposed to stay. The best way to get where I needed to be was on one of those sleeper buses. I paid for a second seat for an additional $9 and was not crowded in with a bunch of other people. Story 25. Needed to change to tip the valet at a wedding reception. Ran to the corner store, bought a $5 lottery ticket just to get change, and tipped the valet $5. Checked the numbers a day or two later and won $600. Learned at that moment that $600 is the limit that you can get straight cash from the vendor. Story 26. I bought a cinema ticket for a mate who was at home to make sure he didn't miss out on the film. It was my last £10. He didn't give it back to me when he arrived. They all went for burgers I didn't eat. We then went to a pub. He asked, "What do you want?" "Oh, a Coke, please." He came back with 2 glasses. I reached out for one. He walked past me and said, "In your dreams." That £10 was worth every penny to find out he wasn't a mate.